I join you on this beautiful day in September. Surprisingly, no rain and gales yet. We could almost do with a drop of rain. Time to just breathe a little bit after all the excitement of the honey harvest and all that stuff. The treatments are all in. What I'm doing today is I'm at my nuke yard. I moved a load of these nukes 2 nights ago. And I'm going through putting feed on again. In other words, liquid feed, syrup, and also pollen sub. So I've got pollen patties and liquid fructose. So I'm really hoping we get this weather and it continues, because these bees are a little bit behind than where I want them to be. They're all on sort of 2 or 3 frames. I want them on 3 and 4 frames when they explode. They're not going to explode right now, and they're all struggling a bit. But hopefully, with a little bit of TLC, which is what they're getting today, they're all going to be edging on. So they'll be that little bit stronger when the weather does go poopy in about 3 or 4 weeks. But we got the ivy flow starting, so it's all to play for. The ivy flow's there, they've got feed, there's everything they need. I've reduced entrances right down. We don't generally have any robbing, but I think reducing the entrances right down from the moment you harvest the honey in July, when that dearth starts, is the best thing you could do. And that's where I've made a few mistakes this year, whereas I didn't get these entrances down in time, and I've only done it now. But what's there is good. I had quite a few dead outs, quite a few robbed out, but you know, hey ho, it's done, it's gone, you move on. Breeder queens is what I've been talking about this week. Here's the video. I want to make it absolutely clear that I'm not picking holes in any of the 3 queens that I show you in the video. They're all absolutely super duper queens, and I buy them all again tomorrow. That's the honest truth. All I'm saying is watch it and see what the Varroa results are like, because I think you'll be surprised, and I was as well. Especially one queen that I was hoping would have some degree of resistance. But that just shows you what it's like. Hope you enjoy the video. Take care, enjoy this gorgeous weather. So I want to talk to you a little bit about breeder queens and why they're so important to me in my particular scenario. I buy a certain amount of breeder queens every year because I believe that it's the best way forward in my particular setup here. I like the fact that I can go to a professional breeder who has spent many years controlling the queens and their mating. So obviously, when the queens go and mate with the drones, the result is controlled. Here, I have a lot of people around who have singles and double colonies. In other words, we call them onesies and twosies. They generally don't manage their colonies very well. Their genetics are what's flying around in the environment. In other words, their genetics are made up of very, very dark AMM bees, Apis mellifera, that are the local stock that's flying around. I don't want to be defamatory, but the problem is when you're a beekeeper who's interested in having good honey yields, you do not want to have shitty black bees, because they're aggressive, they're hard to work with, they don't produce much comb in the spring, the build-up is slow. Okay, you could say they're probably a little bit more robust and perhaps a little bit more resistant against Varroa. But for me, there's no better bee than a queen bee that you've bought from a breeder, or one I've raised myself from my own genetics, when I've kind of controlled the lines a bit, as much as I can do here, or an inseminated queen, knowing the makeup of that bee. Now, if you understand a little bit about bee genetics, and I know very little, but all I do know is that bees have 32 chromosomes, and 16 make up, when you make daughters from a queen, you get 16 of those chromosomes in the egg, and the other 16 come from the drones. But don't forget, the drones are not just one single drone. They are multiple drone mating. So you've got approximately 16 to 18 or 20 times that queen goes off and mates over 1 or 2 days. You've got that mix of genetics, but it's not just those genetics, it's all the matings from the genetics before. So those drones are introducing thousands of combinations of different makeup of bees. So when you get your when you take a queen from one of your hives that you've open mated and then you cross it, you're actually getting a huge combination of genetics within that one queen. So if you do buy a breeder queen, at least you're getting half of the genetics, well, not even a half, you're getting some of the genetics in that mother queen that you get mated. And for me here, it's not just the daughters I make that give the lines I want, it's the other drones I raise that I augment to hopefully give some basically good traits. You know, nice on the comb, not runny, productive, good disease resistance, all that, okay? And yes, if you do flood the area with drones, I believe it does work. We have to flood an awful lot of drones. So you've got to get a lot of colonies, maybe 20 or 30 colonies within the vicinity with drone combing in the spring, half a frame, and you get that, you know, flooded. But to me, it's just really important to understand it a little bit so that you realize that if you're just trying to select one colony amongst the ones you've got, so you've got 10 colonies and you try and select that one colony and take queens from her and then open mate it, it's almost futile to try and do it, because if you're not close mated, if you don't live like in a place where you have your own valley or your own area that is pretty close mating, the results are going to be so variable, and you have to try to get some good genetics installed into your bees. So for me, that's what I have to do. I have to get a breeder queen or 2 every year, or I inseminate my queens. Now, when I inseminate, I've done some inseminations this year, some instrumental inseminations. It was great. I've got about 8 inseminated queens that are alive now. They're very nice. They appear to be good. I won't be able to assess them until next year, but next year those will already be giving drones because I know the lines from them. So that's 8 colonies that I'm happy to have their drones augmenting the drones in the area. So that'll be really good, you know? So it's building all the time. And also every spring I select my best colonies that I see here, and I augment their drones by putting in drone comb and getting them produce a little bit more drones. And I take away any nasty colonies that have traits I don't like. That's how I manage it. That's what I have to do. So I've got a couple of breeder queens that I'm going to just go through fairly quickly. I'm just going to have a good look at them. I'm going to do some mite counting on them with my easy check mite counter, and it's not that really I'm expecting them to have low mite levels, okay, but it's nice to have a baseline to know where you work from. It's a really good idea to do mite testing in all of your apiaries, because some apiaries are going to be higher than others because of other influences, and we all know that if your bees rob out a colony that's just died, the mites are going to jump ship, and the majority of them will end up in your hives if you have no other neighbours. I mean, you might have 3 or 4 beekeeping neighbours and only one of those hive dies out, and then the mites are distributed to other areas. It's a variable thing. We just can't be sure at the moment of what's going where, because nobody knows. And that's the problem also when you don't have declared hives, when people don't manage their hives properly. It opens up a huge can of worms. So we have to be checking our mite levels to A, to know what we're going into the winter with, and B, to know what kind of level of control or management we are managing to attain during our bee operations. Because if you don't know what mites you've got during the year, you're really on a hiding to nothing, because you could suddenly have majorly big problems somewhere and go, oh, I wonder what caused that. Was it the bad weather? And it might just be that you've got really high mite levels in your colonies that affects everything else, and people forget that. So let's go through a couple of hives. Let's have a quick look at what we've got and do some mite washes and just, you know, have a little look at that. So I'm going to do this honest review on these few breeder queens I've got. I will also say before I start that if you ever buy queens from a breeder and you ask them to be breeder queens and you ask to know their lineage and their pedigree, don't also expect that it's taken as a done thing, because even breeders who have island mated queens or controlled mating don't always get it right. And it's totally unfair to have one queen from somebody and go, oh, that queen was rubbish. Because sometimes they just really, there's just sometimes it happens. You just cannot get you don't have a good cross. If you need to get 2 or 3 over 3 or 4 years to have a consistent idea of what that breed is like. And I'll just say that because it's the absolute truth. I've had 1 year I got some queens from a breeder and they were pretty rubbish. They didn't perform well. And I was like, I don't know. And I remain open-minded. You know me, I'm quite open-minded. I don't make judgment on things on short-term results. You have to give it the long term. Okay? So this first one is a breeder queen from Duncan Simmons, from Simmons Apiary in the UK. I've already taken some daughters from her. And this is exactly as I've had her in the box. I've had a top on, they've had some pollen side, but I haven't given them any extra feed apart from the spring. They've still got some good weight to them, which is good. But I know they've been building up. They were slow to build up because I put them in there with not many nurse bees at the start. But they have been in there since the 6th of July. So I'm pretty happy that now that they've had a good changement of bees. And first of all, I'm seeing that's a really good sign. I've got bees on the top of the the pollen sub. They're taking that down nicely. I'm not. This is kind of as it is, you know. This is what I'm finding. I haven't done anything to this colony all year apart from put it in the box and manage it and give it. You know, they're already. I know they're lovely bees. I've already had a dozen daughters from her, and I'll take more next spring. But it's just to show you what you can get, and there's some really good breeders out there, you know. So I'm just going to take these off for a minute. This pollen that we actually made up was a little bit too loose, but they're taking it down quite nicely, you know. So just going to move that over there. I'm not wearing gloves for any of these breeder queens because I want to be absolutely really careful so that I don't damage the queens, and I want to make sure that I am, you know, it gives me a feel of what the colony's like. Okay. And I mean, you know, who am I to assess these queens? But I'm just saying it as I find it. Other people might find different qualities, you know. I'm just kind of doing it as I see it, and hopefully we'll have a good look at these and find out what's going on, you know. And like always, when I've got a queen that's extremely good and I'm pretty pleased with her, I want to make sure I always start from the outside and move a bit of space over, because I do not want to be rolling bees. I do not want to be rolling bees and maybe squash that queen, because she'll be in here and, you know. So she's a green dot queen. She's a number 32 with her own disc tag on. So we're going to lift these frames out really carefully and have a good look. So straight away we've got beautiful calm bees. We've got a nice brood area. A little bit of honey stored, which I like, but I don't like a lot. That to me is just good. Straight away I know they've still got honey if they're short. Look at those, hardly moving. We've got eggs in those cells. Pretty happy with that. Nice frames of bees. So I'm going to put this one, I haven't seen the queen on this, I'm going to double check, but I'm just going to put this one to the side to give us room. In that frame we've got loads of eggs. The rest of these are just hatching out. It looks pretty good to me. What I've seen so far, I would graft from this straight away, you know. But I know she's a good Buckfast line. She's been inseminated, this queen, actually. She wasn't open mated. So, and here she is. She's on this frame, 32. Now, you've got to remember as well that this time of year, there she is. That this time of year, the queens are not going to be laying as they normally would do. They're laying a lot still, but the patterns aren't complete generally in most colonies, because the amount of pollen coming in is very variable. So you do get days when it's not as good as it should be. We're getting towards early autumn. Look at that, she's not stressed, she's a beautiful queen. Just so you can see her there nicely. I want you to have a good look at her. There she is, right in the middle there now. I mean, this is exactly what I like when I see my bees. A good frame of brood. Very calm bees, not runny. Plenty of food. Plenty of provisions. But these will need a feed. So I'm going to put her back in there. I know where she is. She's going back in that one out of the way. I'm just going to have a very quick look at these other frames. full of bees. A little bit of nectar there again. Nice brood. Absolutely great. But I want this colony heavier. I want this colony, I mean, in terms of the other ones, this has slightly more honey than the others. There's a slightly more honey-bound frame, which is great. Brood on that side. No brood this side, but more honey in the frame. So this is exactly what I want to see. So these bees are really lovely. They're really in a position I'm happy with them. They're already making provisions for the winter. You know, okay, I haven't done much with them, and they haven't given me much because since July, it's taken them time to build up, because when they were introduced, they were in the dearth. So they did well, to be honest. And then we're just going in now into there's even bees on the outside of the 6th frame there. So I'm pretty, and look at that honey there. Nice honey. So this is the exact kind of queen I'm looking for. You know, calm bees, not rushing around. I've used no smoker. I lit the smoker just in case, because sometimes I like to clear the top. Okay, so I'm going to put these back with the queen out the way. So I know she's on that frame still. I'm going to use this frame to do my mite check, because this is a frame with brood on, and there's a lot of nurse bees there. So I'm going to take a sample from these bees here, because I've got open larvae. I'm actually going to look for another frame. I'm just going to change my mind a bit, because I actually prefer a frame with open brood that's about to be capped. So I'm going to move that frame away. If I can find a frame with open brood that's about to be capped, that's the place I want to be taking my sample from. And I bet I'm not going to find it, because it looks like a lot of this brood is nearly all capped over, and she's obviously slowing down her laying for the year. So there's none on that one. So I might just have to take a sample from the first frame I picked up before. Because what happens is, with Varroa mites, the best frames to choose are the ones with the brood that's just about to be sealed over. Because the mites are just going to be hanging around on the nurse bees there, jumping around between frames. And they're going to be looking. There she is again. So she's just laying into that. And I'm going to have to take a sample from that first frame I pulled out before. So I'm going to put this queen back in once and for all. Okay, and let's just use this frame here. And there's a lot of people make a lot of noise about taking bee samples. The best way is just to do this. And you're rolling the bees off. They roll off into the top of the... There we go. That's a reasonably good sample there. This is a bit I don't like doing. I know you do kill bees when you do this. I'm just adding the alcohol now. I've got a whole bottle of this. Instantly they're all gone. But believe you me, it's worth it. Okay. Sorry, girls. So I'm going to put the top on. Give them a good shake. This is a bit that takes a little bit of time, so I'm just going to stop the video now, and we're going to come back in a few minutes. So I am counting here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 mites. 13, 14 mites. So that's much higher than I want. So these will get treatment, but it's not a reflection on the ability for the queen to perform. It just means that it's not a very good resistant colony. I've got to remember that all these results are all going to be like this, but I'm just going through them so I know where I am in terms of mite levels. This hive, actually, I've just put the treatments in, and now I'm going to be able to know that I had that, and I'll be able to check the mites again later on. When this colony was put together, it was bees from a colony. It was a nuke just made up from another colony. I didn't know the mite levels before either, so I can't say that this result is a true reflection until I knew I'd started with 0 mites at the start. But at the end of the day, a colony that is said to be mite resistant or good at dealing with mites should be able to reduce the amount of mites even if there's a high infestation at the start, because that's how you test. You infect the colony with mites and then you test the results 3 or 4 weeks later, or maybe a little bit less, but about that time. So really that colony is not that mite resistant, so I've got to bear that in mind, you know, when I'm breeding from it. So I'm just going to rinse out this. What I've got here is I've got a filter paper, and it means I can reuse my alcohol. This is an alcohol we get in France. It's just like a cleaning spirit, but it's exactly the same. It does a really good job. You can tip out your alcohol in through a filter paper and reuse it for the next one, so you're not wasting much at all, so it's great. And let's get this done. That colony now is finished. The great thing about this is as well, is I can put pollen sub on these two ends, and that was on the top here before. You saw me take it off, and then I feed inside here, but they'll get the feed later. That's another thing to do later, but at least they've had their treatments. I know now that that's being sorted out. On to the next one. So the next queen we're going to look at is a marken. I've just taken the top off the box. I had some feed on there. The pollen side was there, and was this side, that's gone. The feed has all gone. They've taken it down. Beautiful. So I'm happy with that. Here's the pedigree card. Okay, it actually has a sticker before, but I always write down in black. So this was an N28 with a drone line M102. Obviously from 2020, from this year. So let's have a quick look inside here. I set this up so hopefully you can see inside the box. That looks fairly good, although at a bit of an angle. Hopefully that's better. You can see, yeah. Okay, so I'm just going to lift this off. A little bit of pollen sub left there, but these bees look lovely too. Obviously I'm inspecting them in good weather. So this was where I introduced the queen, because I marked it. She was put in a pushing cage, and I mark on the frame. That's what the green mark is. You can see already a nice lot of honey stored in here. I'm really pleased. Yeah, this is much heavier because I already have fed it. Okay, let's have a little look. Let's lift this one out. Very nice feeling of these bees, just like the Duncan Simmons. Beautiful. Nice frame of honey here. That's what I like to see this time of year as well. But they've just been fed with syrup, so I expect that's why. And you can see here we've got nice pearly white larvae on this one, so there is some more open brood on this than the other colony we just checked. So that's very nice. I'm going to leave this one out here for a moment. Queen isn't on that. Just gives us a little bit more room. We do not want to kill this queen, you know, or accidentally damage her, squash her. Nice brood. Look at that. Too much brood for this time of year. Lovely calm bees. Good frame. A little bit of honey here again and here. A little bit across the top, which is what I like. It's getting that balance. I don't want to see no honey, but I like to see a little bit. But that just means I've got those stores up there. So the queen is unlikely to be on this one anyway, because this is closed brood. Here's our queen. Now this one she's actually island mated, so they would have taken the drones and the virgin queens to a separate island that's totally isolated from other drone flyers. So, you know, she's totally calm on the frame there. Nice bees, good provisions, good honey as well. I like this colony as well a lot, you know. Eggs in the comb. Just very nice. Again, very happy with that. Obviously this is a selected Buckfast, as you know. So, you know, this is exactly what you get when you start buying good queens. Now this frame I put in later, and they've just started to draw it up nicely. So here it is. You can see they've started to build fresh comb on that. That's all that nice white comb that you can see there, but they're filling them up now. They're rebuilding the wax, and they're starting to stock that for the winter. But I'm going to keep feeding because they're taking it, and I want these to be well fed to go into the winter. I'm just a little bit behind on my winter preparations. You can see I've got to get a treatment. But everywhere is done, apart from my home apiary here. And this is the one that obviously gets neglected sometimes, but because all the others take precedence, to be honest, but this shouldn't. So there we go, nice honey in that one on the outer frame. Just bees there, no brood. That's very nice. I'm very happy with that as well. Taken down everything nicely. The queen's on that one. Let's use this one. If that was the one with some open brood, no, it was the one the queen was on. So let's go back to that one. Let's move her off. And I can do my mite sample from the open brood. Find out where she is. I do not want her going into the... there she is. Right, let's move her off. Just been stung on the finger of my own foot. I just squeezed the bee. Let's move her off onto the other frame. Just stuck my finger in a bee. Okay. Put that to the side for the moment so I can get my mite check ready. We're just getting a sample of about 100 bees from the open brood, which is good. So that's great. Leave those there for the moment. I'm going to grab my alcohol I left on the other side. Okay, I'll come back to you in a minute when I've shaken this up. So this is the results from the marking. And I don't know if you can see me swirling it around there, but I've just counted 22 mites on this, which is way too high. Way too high. So I've got some serious work here to get these numbers down. So obviously the first queen I did was actually, in retrospect, was actually quite good results. But let's just not be negative. Let's just use it as a benchmark of where things are at the moment in my apiary. And then I'm going to move on to the next one. The next one I'm going to do is the queen from Dr. Peter Stauffen in Germany. And the queen I'm going to test of his, I've got two. And I've got two of these markings, which is what I've just tested. But I've only done one of them. So I'm going to do the other Dr. Peter Stauffen. And that is supposed to be a Varroa resistant queen. Well, have some traits of resistance in it. So it'd be interesting to see what her numbers are like. But this isn't good. This is a high percentage of infestation of Varroa, and we've got to get this down before the winter, like now. That's why the treatments have just gone on. So this next queen is supposed to be quite special, and I'm really interested to see the mite levels. It's a queen from Dr. Peter Stauffen in Germany. It's one of the lines from this year. She's said to be very hygienic, but also Varroa resistant. Okay, on the ticket it says plus Varroa. So she was quite expensive to buy. I can't remember the price, but I think it's about 140 euros. So that's actually not a lot for a breeder queen when you consider what the potential is. Now, in terms of the hygienic rating, she had a very high hygienic rating, but I can't assess that here. I'm not here to assess that now. Okay, we can look for things like chalk brood. We can look for things that are obvious, that if they were in the colony, we'd think, their bees aren't cleaning that out very well. But that's another test. The test for that is when there's several tests. You can pin kill the brood, and then they'll uncap it and butcher the brood if it's dead. That's the way of testing hygienicness. You can also put a circle, like a disc on top of the brood on the right stage brood, pour some liquid nitrogen on it or liquid carbon dioxide, freeze that brood so it's killed, and you measure the speed that brood is cleared out. But to me, I'm not here to do that today. I'm here to, as you know, just to look at the colony, see what it's doing, see what the strength of the colony is like, and have an idea of what the Varroa is like we've done previously. So let's do this one. I may have a problem getting the camera on this one because the angle is a little bit more tricky. Tripods are never easy taking pictures of bees. See if we can angle this down. See how that is. Can you see that? Just about. It's kind of as it is, so I'm just, like I say, it is what it is. Let's just lower this front foot down a bit more. Hopefully my camera will hold in there while I film this. I don't always do so. So you can see that now. So no smoking, and I've left my smoker up there. I've had feed in this, as you can see. They've just about finished that. And I did graft a lot of queens off this one in the autumn because I just felt it was a good time to do it, and I wanted to just go for it and see what I could find. Historically, when you have bees that are more Varroa resistant, they're generally said to be a little bit more aggressive. Okay, so let's see if that is the case. This is the first queen I have actually ever bought that is supposed to have a degree of Varroa resistance. And obviously I've got queens from my own breeder program that I'm going to be assessing soon as well, that are a completely different group of queens, and I'm hopefully going to be assessing them for Varroa resistance as well, but I've got to do the whole lot of them, not just one or two. These are just my ballpark breeder queens for next year that I would have used anyway, but now I'm becoming much more aware of their degree of non-resistance to Varroa, which is so alarming, which is why I've gone into using bees or starting to breed from bees that are said to be more Varroa resistant. Okay, so first of all, we've got no bees flying. We've taken off the top. You can see where the pollen sub was. The bees aren't doing anything there. That to me is already like, I like this, you know, like the other two we've just done. So that's out of the three, this is still the same. This is still looking good. The bees look nice. Let's have a look inside. Let's make a little bit of room, and then we'll do a mite wash, and we'll be able to test what the numbers are. Plenty of bees, which is what I like, and nice nurse bees. Honey in the arc, which is good. I can't actually see because the sun's come out. I can't see the camera, but I think we're okay. Let me just move this around. Stand up a bit. We've got a little bit of activity by the bees. So there's our queen. Isn't she absolutely enormous? So that is a queen from Dr. Peter Stauffen, all the way from Germany. And she is, I think, inseminated. She's an absolute beauty. Absolutely gorgeous looking queen. If you can't see her there, there she is. Number 12. Sorry, number 42 I should say. I've got the pedigree card here, but it's actually up at the house. So so I haven't got my queen clip, so I'm going to put her here, and I'm just going to move. I'm going to move another frame out the way first to make room so she stays on this frame if we can keep her on it. But overall, I'm very happy with these bees already, because let's take this frame out. I don't want the queen to come off and fall somewhere. Let's put that one there for the moment. I know that this queen is okay on this. She's right on that top frame now. I don't want her to move off that frame. There she is. So we'll hopefully keep her on that frame for now while I look at the other frame. This is a frame I put in. It was a bit of a mixed frame today. This is actually where I took, the interesting thing was I took a square of eggs out to try and do something with some eggs of this, and they rebuilt drone comb into it later in the year. You can see, even it was later in the year, they still built drone comb to repair the frame. So that's interesting, that's good. It's always the same when you do, if you're in the spring and you want to get the bees to make drone comb, you literally cut half the frame off and they'll rebuild the bottom of it in drone comb. And that's usually what they do, but you need to put the frame in frame position 2 or position 8 in your colony to do it. And then afterwards you move it, after they've built it out, you can then move it to the side a bit more if you want, or move it somewhere else when they've laid up the drones you want. But these bees are absolutely lovely. I'm really impressed with this because we're going to see what the mite resistance is like. But if they do have some mite resistance, these are really the queens I want to be breeding from, because look how, again, these are beautifully and calm. Plenty of brood, big colony. There's some open brood on this frame. Let's have a look at the last one there. There's a nice sort of open white pearly brood there. So this is the frame I'm going to take my sample from. I hate doing this, but unfortunately it's necessary. So I'm going to pop that down the side again. A nice load of bees in there. Let's chip some more alcohol in. So I haven't counted this yet, but we're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 mites. Way too high. And I'm disappointed really, because I was hoping that the queen that you are buying some genetics from that are supposed to be more resistant to Varroa aren't saying that they are. Now, as I said before at the start, one queen, when she does, even when she open mates in controlled drones, it's still not always the perfect cross, but I would have expected better from her than that. But the colony is beautiful. All 3 colonies I've looked at have been beautiful. They've all built up really well since they were introduced in these 2 came, I think, a week before the Duncan Simmons queen. So in retrospect, these have had a little bit more time to build up than the Duncan Simmons one, but even though the Duncan Simmons one has actually done really well as well. So what I'm getting at is they're all about equal. They've all been outgrowing the Varroa, and now this is when you have the crunch time, when the numbers of Varroa keep rising because the brood is hatching out, but the queen isn't renewing her laying and isn't renewing the worker bees so much. And once that laying decreases, then you are basically on a hiding to nothing. And 2 things: you're losing your adult flying bees because the numbers are decreasing, and also you are starting to make those winter bees, and the Varroa mites will be increasing in numbers and giving a high percentage of your bees the viruses that will be in your colony over the winter, and that's what's going to kill your bees, not the Varroa itself. Don't forget, it's the viruses, the 12 or 15 viruses that the bees contain in greater or lesser amounts each year. They're higher or lower, different virus loads, we say, but that is what we're talking about now. You've got to get it in your head that you have to control your mites early, otherwise you end up like this. You end up with too many mites later in the season. It's not a disaster, but I've got to work really hard now. These are going to have oxalic acid treatment. This whole apiary is going to have oxalic acid as well as the Apivar strips we use to try and knock these mites back. We've got to work really hard to knock these mites back quickly now, so that we have a new generation being born that are mite free. And that is the key. I have to get onto this. This has opened my eyes this afternoon. I was hoping to have maybe 3, maybe 5, maybe 8 mites at the very top, not 14s and 15s. So, and this is the ones that are supposed to be mite resistant. Goodness knows what the rest of my colonies are like. I'm going to do a few mite levels now and have a look. But my whole point was, I've got these breeder queens because the other characteristics are really good. You know, they are stable in their genetic line. In other words, they're not just a one-off. They've come from a selected background. You pay money for it, but at least when you start your breeding, when you start with your virgin queens, no matter what they do out there when they're mating, you do get some baseline that are going to be transferred into your colonies when those queens start laying. So it is a really good idea to get some breeder queen, or just make sure that you can select from colonies that are in an area that have been there for a long time. And if you like the Apis mellifera mellifera that is calm, and you find one that's good, and generally the others are good in the area, then no problem, grow up from it. All I'm saying is, for me, in my particular area, I cannot do that, because the crap that flies around here, I tell you, I've done it for 5 years, and there'll be people that are going to reply and say, oh, you shouldn't slag off AMM. Well, I say, come here and see some French bees, and I'll show you what they're really like, okay? They are absolutely terrible to work with. So that's all I'm saying. I'm just doing what works for me, and that's what you have to do in beekeeping. You have to do what works for you. So that was a bit of fun. It's opened my eyes to mite levels and how out of control they are. I've got to get them under control now, not in 2 weeks. I've got to be down tomorrow. All these treatments are going in straight away here. I've just been so busy harvesting my honey, as you know, which was great because I got my treatments in my production colonies first. And that was what I've done this year. All my production colonies have had treatments in by the end of August, which is almost too late really, but it's better than middle to end of September, which it was last year. So I'm creeping back again. I'm catching up a bit. Now these hives, I can go around and mite treat these all and then give them some oxalic acid, and hopefully we really will get these mites knocked for 6. So that's the job for this week, and next week is getting those done. So I'll put up a link to the 3 sites I've got these queens from if you're interested. Duncan Simmons from Cornwall, the Marken queens from the Marken Isles, and also the queen from Dr. Peter Stauffen in Germany. I'll put the links up at the end. Incidentally, I know Duncan Simmons' queens are actually selling out really quick. So if you want to get any, you need to reserve them this week or next week, because he's like getting them to the point where he can't take any more orders for next year. It's already going crazy for him, which is great. So anyway, whatever you're doing, I hope you enjoyed this video. It's just a bit of interest, and I like to look at my breeder queens because that's what's going to be the future generations. You really must plan ahead like that. Investment is best.